now watching Way Back Wednesday, sponsored by Davenport Auto Park, the ride of your life. And also sponsored by Flores Glass, serving the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Folks, and welcome to another episode of Way Back Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcock. So glad you could be with us tonight. We're running a little bit late. We apologize for that. The previous show ran a little bit long, but again, we're glad you're here. You know, I mentioned last week that I was asked to participate in a documentary along the life of Billy Harrison, a local fellow who was born and raised in Rocky Mount, and later went on to achieve great success in the banking finance industry with Chase Manhattan, JP Morgan. So anyway, that took place Monday, and I was really impressed. They had a very professional crew. In addition to the videographer, the sound man, there was like a production manager, I guess, and then Joyce, the lady who actually conducted the interview. It was really interesting to me. I never knew Mr. Harrison and didn't really know anything about the man. I did a little bit of research on my own. But he really had a fascinating life and achieved the pinnacle of success in his field. But during the course of the interview, a couple of things popped up, a couple of questions popped up that I really wasn't sure how to answer. And so I wanted to give you, the viewer tonight, an opportunity to weigh in on a couple of questions that was asked of me and just to get your opinion. So first of all, I'm going to give you the number. I know those that watch the show every week know the number, but for those who don't, it's 407-1111. Again, 407-1111. And there's two questions, as I said, that were asked of me. And there's not a right or wrong answer to either one of them, but I wanted to just relay those to you, the viewer. And I'd like to encourage you throughout the show tonight to call in. The first was... the question was about how was Rocky Mount, how was it different growing up here in the 1940s, 50s, and even into the 1960s? Billy Harrison was born in Rocky Mount in 1943 and left here, I think, around 1962, and actually went to high school up in Virginia, and from there went on to UNC and then started his career up in New York and literally traveled around the world in the banking and finance industry. But we were curious about how Rocky Mount was, how it was to live in Rocky Mount in the 1940s and 1950s and into the early 1960s. And so this was obviously predated me. This time frame was before I was thought of. But you know, I've heard from some of you over the years, and I've talked to family members, and so I had an idea of how Rocky Mount was. And the word that came to my mind and what I shared with the people who were conducting this interview was idyllic. And without sounding corny, you know, TV shows that I watched as a kid, many of you remember as well, Ozzie and Harriet, Mayberry RFD, Father Knows Best. Those were the kind of TV shows that reminded me of the way I had heard Rocky Mount was in the 1940s, 50s, and even into the 60s when I came along. But so again, if you have any memories that you would like to share with us, I encourage you to call in anytime throughout the show, whether it's a favorite activity as a child, maybe where you went to school, a favorite teacher, just something that you remember from your childhood, particularly if you grew up here in the 1940s and 50s and even into the 60s. I'd love to hear from you. I don't know that this production crew is watching the show tonight. I did give them the information regarding the time slot and so forth and how to view us on the web, so they may be watching. I hope so anyway. The other question that came up was related to the 1962 visit by Martin Luther King to Rocky Mount. I was very young then, and we did not attend that. But, you know, I look back at the content of Martin Luther King's speech from that time frame. We've got some pictures I'm going to share with you too momentarily. But another question that was asked of me was, you know, did Martin Luther King's visit to Rocky Mount change anything? Did it move the needle in any way? Did it you know, provide any kind of hope? And I'd like to think it did, particularly for those. You know, Rocky Mount over the years has had more than our fair share of impoverished communities. It goes without saying that those impoverished communities are by and large African American. They're not all, but I think it's safe to say that the vast majority of the impoverished communities in and around Rocky Mount are made up of minorities. So You know, I felt like, and I still feel like, that those who probably got the most from that visit of Martin Luther King were those in attendance who resided in those impoverished communities, and probably, understandably, I might add, would probably have a reason to look for something to provide hope, and a reason to think that things are going to get better. So if you attended that rally, I'd love to hear from you. Martin Luther King spoke, of course, at the Booker T. Washington High School, which is now the location for the OIC Center here in Rocky Mount, one of their main offices, in fact. But if you attended that speech, or if you were present there in 1962 when Martin Luther King spoke, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to know what your thoughts were, what you thought about the speech, what you thought about Mr. King, what he had to say, and whether or not his visit to Rocky Mount changed anything, or provided any kind of uplift or incentive, or even the possibility that things could get better for those, particularly those who admittedly were on the lower end of the spectrum as far as economics and finance and so forth, and probably were looking for some hope that things would indeed get better. Martin Luther King's message was not just for African Americans. He spoke openly to white America and anybody who was impoverished, and I think the message that he had more than anything else was that there is hope, and there should always remain to be hope. And so, I'd like to think that his visit did at least provide some hope. If it didn't move the needle, at least maybe provided some hope to people who needed some hope. That being said, I'd like to go ahead and take a look at a couple of pictures that were taken from that time frame. And Lee, if you go ahead and put the first one up. Again, this was 1962. Martin Luther King visited Rocky Mount. His speech was in the Booker T. Washington High School gym. And this picture here, I'm not sure whether Charlie Killebrew took these pictures or whether it was Bugs Behringer or someone else. And I'm not even sure how long he was here in Rocky Mount. Notice the curtain behind him there. I saw another picture, and frankly, I wasn't sure. Can you zoom out on this picture, Lee, at all? Because above that clock on the wall, there's an emblem that actually says BT or Booker T or something like that. So this picture, I'm fairly certain, is from that event in 1962 at the Booker T. Washington High School. But I've seen another picture, and it could be this same room, but it had a different podium, and it had a painted background behind Mr. King. And so one or the other is probably accurate, but this one, as I said, and it's hard to see now, but above that clock, because this was the gym, there was, I think that was part of the time clock that showed the time remaining in the, well, this was actually obviously a clock here, but I'm saying I think this was part of the scorekeeper clock, I should say. But in any case, this picture, I'm fairly certain, was taken there in the Booker T. Washington gym. And again, at the top of the picture, it's kind of been cut off here now, but there is the words Booker T up there. So Lee, I tell you what, let's go to the next picture then, if we could. This next one is actually a picture of oh, there's the other picture. Yeah, this is the one I was talking about. This, I found this online, and it was actually captioned as Booker T. Washington speaks in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. But obviously this is a different background. I compared these two pictures back and forth several times to see if I could find something similar. And the podium is different, the microphones are different, even the people standing there are different. So I'm not entirely sure that this was the speech, the same location. It may have been that curtain that we saw in the previous picture could have been hiding that painted scene behind him back there. But I don't know for sure that this was from Booker T, even though it was captioned on the internet where I found it as being in Rocky Mount in 1962. So the next picture, if we could, Lee, this next one is actually the gym. Keep in mind, OIC is now headquartered in the old Booker T. Washington High School, but this is the gym that Booker T. Washington spoke at in 1962. I'm not sure how many people were in attendance. I would imagine the place was packed, but again, I don't know. I've not seen any numbers that reveal a number of people in attendance there. But I can imagine it was quite an event and really something special for those who were there. Martin Luther King was a phenomenal speaker. I've heard his speech and seen a videotape of it a few times over the years, and I'm sure there was, people who were there got something out of it. I'm certain of that. Okay, there's a plaque too on the wall in the gym. Go ahead, Lee, if you could, to the next picture. And this is a picture of the plaque that appears on the wall of the gym. I'm not sure where it is. I've never been in this gym, but it says Dr. Martin Luther King gave a speech in this gym on November 27, 1962, where he delivered the refrain, "I have a dream," using his Lincoln Memorial Address in 1963. Dr. King was invited to speak here by the Rocky Mountain Voters and Improvement League. That portion of the speech, "I have a dream," is mistakenly, I think, sometimes thought to have originated in his speech here in Rocky Mount. He actually first used that phrase in a speech in Georgia earlier that same year, I think it was. But, of course, the speech that was later given at the Lincoln Memorial in 1963 is the one everyone remembers, where he speaks these iconic words again, "I have a dream." So it's, widely believed, and I think probably accurately so, that he took bits and pieces of different speeches that he had made over the years and combined them into that speech in 1963 at the Lincoln Memorial. And so it's safe to say that his speech here in Rocky Mount did contribute to that speech in Washington, D.C. A year later. But anyway, this is a nice little plaque here that is on the wall inside the Booker T. Washington, or OIC, gym now, over here in Virginia Street in Rocky Mount. So, okay. After last week's show, I got a text from Randy Harrell. Randy watches the show regular from some Memphis, Tennessee, I believe it is, or Nashville maybe, Nashville, Tennessee, excuse me. And he watches over the internet, and after the show, he'll send me a few texts, and we'll chuckle about a few things. But he sent me a picture that I had shared on the show, actually, and made a reference to a Tesla charging station. And of course, the picture was back from the early 1950s. And so it kind of got me thinking, so Lee, go ahead and, if you could, let's go ahead and put this picture up so the viewers can see what we're talking about here. Okay, this is the picture, and you may remember this from a couple of weeks ago. We put this picture up, and I think this was Charlie Killebrew took this picture, actually. We were able to determine that later this week, or earlier this week, I should say. But you see the Rick's Hotel back in the background, the far left there, and there's Robinson's Course in the center. But what Randy brought to my attention was to the left of the picture, that pole that's coming up out of the ground there. And if you look closer, you can see there's 3 power lines that are coming across about, 3/4 way from the top across the screen, and they're attached to that pole. So the question became, what is that pole? What did it do? What purpose did it serve? And Randy, of course, jokingly referenced that it could have been a Tesla charging pole. We both knew he was joking. But I set out to find out what that was because I didn't know. And so what I did was there's a really neat, for those that are on the internet, and particularly if you're on Facebook, you may be familiar with the SAL Railroad Historical Society Facebook page. And if you're not, you need to go check it out. If you're a railroad buff, or if you have an interest in old railroad history, just go to Facebook and do a search for ACL/SAL Railroad Historical Society. There's a lot of neat information there, a lot of neat old photographs of old trains and just anything train related. And so I went there. I'd been there before. I knew it existed. So I went there and I put a post out there. I said, hey, does anyone know what this is in this picture? And when Randy sent the picture to me, he had actually highlighted it with, I think, a red ring or yellow ring around the pole itself. And so I shared the picture that Randy sent to me in this historical Facebook page for the train section. And so I got some answers back right away. And so I'm going to read a few of these to you. But as it turns out, this was in fact used by the railroad. Mr. Stuart Slaymaker wrote, it was standby 32-volt house power to keep the massive passenger car batteries charged. Some larger stations had standby steam hookups on their office car stubs too. Dearborn Station in Chicago actually had in a small annex to house and service railroad business cars. Someone else said this was a standby electric service for railroad office cars. It was on the siding at the station. And then someone else said it was 220 volt, 3-phase. It ran the Genum motor under the car when not in motion to keep the batteries charged and the electrical system functional. A Genum motor is an AC motor on the same shaft as a DC generator. Safety Car and GE were the primary vendors. There was two companies that made these things, Safety Car being one and GE, General Electric, being the other. And this fellow goes on to say it's kind of like shore power for boats, but it's for passenger cars and trains. So if you've ever been down at a marina and seen the electrical hookups there near the marina where boats can pull up and connect the cable from the boat to this shore charge system there on shore, that's kind of what this is. There were batteries in the train cars. They needed to be charged up. When the train was running, of course, the batteries would be charged by the electrical system running on the train. But when the train was still and not moving, those would hook a wire up between this pole here and the train, and that's what would charge those batteries. So I don't know when they stopped using these poles. I don't ever recall seeing this. It was gone by the time I came along. Maybe someone knows approximately when they stopped using these, but anyway, it was a neat thing, and I had never heard of it, didn't know anything about it. So thank you, Randy, for bringing it to my attention, and thank you, Facebook, for shedding some light on it, because I honestly had no idea what it was. At the top of the show, I mentioned that I'd love to hear from, we got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
All right, that little pole that you're talking about right there, I understand that many years ago when the Atlantic Coastline Railroad was in existence, 1967 or before, they would push a car in there. They had a track that it would have to be approached from the north, and they would shove a passenger car in there if in anticipation of a high volume of passengers needing to board the train. They could keep that car warm and heated and whatever, and people could just get right from the train station onto the car, and it'd be ready to go, and all the railroad would have to do was go into that side and then hook up to that car and go ahead and leave with it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, apparently they were in use all over, not just here in Rocky Mount, but like I said, I didn't know anything about it, but it was...
The picture you were just showing, you could just see a little bit of the rail, and that's going to be the spur track that went down, went southward towards the train station, went up there towards where the loading platforms and all would be, within good close walking distance coming out of the train station. And they wanted that car to be nice and comfy and hunky-dory. People that had bought a ticket could go out there and get on it, and they not have to wait and get in a cold car.
There you go. There you go. It's all about comfort.
All right.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Okay. So, and then, the railroads back then were the primary means of transportation. A lot of folks didn't have cars. Plane travel was still very expensive. And so a lot of people travel by trains, and yes, they wanted to make sure that they were comfortable for the riders. Oh, we got another call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Hello, Randy.
Yes, sir.
This evening.
Hey, good to hear from you, sir.
About what I remember of Rocky Mount. One of the things I really miss is the smell. I'm speaking about the tobacco market.
Yep.
In the fall of the year.
Yep.
That was a unique, very pleasing smell, even for a non-smoker like myself.
I agree with you. I mentioned that during the interview Monday, because I had that same memory as a small child smelling tobacco downtown Rocky Mount. I sure did.
The other thing I remember is the Saturday afternoon sidewalks. They were full of people, elbow to elbow.
Downtown Rocky Mount?
Walk by those dime stores and smell the popcorn flavored smell coming out. That was really a treat.
It was. You
always seem to have something to look forward to, whether it was the fair coming to town or the circus or the exposition that they would have in the tobacco warehouse.
Right.
There's always seemed like something coming up in the future that you look forward to.
There were so many things. We talked about a little bit about the parades Monday also. There was certainly the Christmas parade and the Shriners parade and the Gallopade parade, Harvest parade down the road in Nashville. But yeah, you're right. There was so much to do, something all the time coming up on the schedule to look forward to and to plan to go to and be a part of. Okay, buddy. Thanks so much for joining in here.
Thank you, Randy.
All right, buddy. Have a good night. Okay, I tell you what, let's take our first commercial break. Folks, we've got some more pictures to show you. When we come back from the break, we'll show you some pictures. We'll take a dive back in time, and we'll talk a little bit of science tonight. We're going to do some history, too. We're going to talk a little bit of science, too. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Way Back Wednesday.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service. We offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family. And we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
Hello, my name is Gus Tullis of Gus Tullis Insurance, and I've been helping people with their insurance needs for well over 20 years. If you're turning 65 or you're currently on Medicare, I can help you make the best decision for the Medicare plan that will suit your needs. Don't wait. Call me today. I'll answer any question you have. 252-937-6913. Looking forward to hearing from you.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
We are back. We're back. Way Back Wednesday's on. Before the break, we were talking about memories of Rocky Mount, and I encourage you, the number's on the bottom of your screen, 407-1111. If you have a memory of growing up in Rocky Mount, particularly back in the 40s and 50s and even into the 60s, we'd love to hear from you. Each week on this show, I share things, many of which are well before my time. I know some of you remember some of these things that I don't. But I've said before, and I mentioned this earlier in the show tonight and also Monday, that Rocky Mount, in my mind, when I think about what I've heard about Rocky Mount, particularly back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, the word that comes to mind almost immediately is idyllic. It just, to me, neighbors helping neighbors, borrowing a cup of sugar from your neighbor next door, neighborhood families looking out for each other, looking out for the kids in the neighborhood. What's another call? Let's get this call. Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, man. Look, me and some of my brothers was talking the other day. I see y'all pretty much about Rocky Mount.
Yes, sir.
And we was trying to figure out the name of the fruit stand that was on the Falls Road across the street from Stony Creek Fire Department, I believe.
Pike's Fruit Stand.
Well, okay. Now, was that two Pikes? I know there was one down here in Mexico.
There was one. There was actually Pike's had a couple different ones. They had one out on 301 across from the old airport out there. There was one down there at Swelton Heights, I think the one you're talking about. And then I'm not certain that the one out at Little Mexico was Pike's. Maybe someone can call and verify that. But I do remember there was one out there too. But I don't think that one was Pike's. It could have been. I'm not positive.
I can't remember neither. But we was talking about the one that was on the Falls Road before they put, I believe it was Ballin Road and Falls Road right on the corner.
Right.
And right across the street from the Stony Creek Fire Department.
Right. I remember when that was there, and I'm fairly.
Man, this is way back in the day now.
It was a long time ago. Sure was.
It's scared me to even think about it.
Well, look, thanks for calling and sharing that, and thanks for watching. We appreciate you.
Oh, yeah, dude. I'll keep up with you guys. I'll be watching. Hey, y'all have a great day.
Thank you, buddy. You too. Have a good night. Okay. Yeah, there was a couple fruit stands around, as I said. I know out on 301, or Church Street, by the old airport out there was a Pike's fruit stand out there for a while, and then at Swelton Heights. If anyone knows for sure about the one out at Little Mexico, call and give us a call. 407-1111 again is the number. We got someone calling in right now. Maybe someone can clear this up for us. Hello, caller, you on the air?
Randy.
Yes, ma'am.
The fruit stand at Little Mexico was Pike's.
It was Pike's? Okay.
And the one across from Stone Creek was called Swelton Heights Fruit Stand. A man named Mr. Vick run it.
Okay, so I'm mistaken. I thought that was Pike's also, but Mr. Vick ran that one.
Yeah, and it was called Swelton Heights Fruit Stand.
Okay, well, thank you so much for clearing that up for us.
Okay.
All right, have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you go. Learn something every week on this show. Okay, so where were we? Oh, yeah. We mentioned about things that were events, and there was always something to do in Rocky Mount. I've heard many stories about the Teenage Club in Rocky Mount, down in the basement of the Masonic Temple, down on Church Street. And so I stumbled across a picture this week, and it just had a caption that said Teenage Club, and it was from 1951. And there's three lovely young ladies here. You might recognize yourself if you happen to frequent the Teenage Club in 1951 down there in the basement of the Masonic Temple. So Lee, if you would put that picture up for us, we'll take a look at that now. And I think this is one that was in a Charlie Killebrew collection. It actually, I think it also appeared in the paper. The caption says, Teenage Club grouping, left to right is, what does that say? Sue Gregory maybe, Frances, Dana, and Barbara Land modeling afternoon frocks for the Teenage Club scene. She's wearing a rayon cotton sundress with something like bolero. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. Anyway, Frances is in a two-tone dress with, some kind of collar and large breast pockets. Anyway, I understand that the Teenage Club was a happening place in the 1950s. My mother has mentioned it. She went there on occasion too. And I think there was ping pong tables, maybe pool tables, I'm not sure, card tables. But it was just a place for teenagers to hang out. I think it had to be like 13 to go in there. And once you got to be no longer a teenager, I think you were unceremoniously booted out. But anyway, I can just imagine there being a lot of fun times took place in the Teenage Club. When I heard stories that people talk about the Teenage Club, it kind of brings to memory to me one of the places I hung out as a child at Tarrytown Mall, Marketplace Ministry out there. Mr. Gerald Neese headed that up. And at the time, he was a chaplain for Carolina Telephone, and he was an ordained, I think, a Methodist minister. There's a celebration of Gerald Neese's life this Saturday afternoon. I think it's at 2 o'clock. And if you're interested in finding out more about that, feel free to give me a call after the show. I feel sure it's open to the public. I believe it's at Inglewood Methodist Church. Don't quote me on that right now. I've got notes back in my office. But he passed away sadly earlier this year, back in January. Gerald Neese was like a second father to a lot of us. I know I spent a lot of time there in my teen years, and it was a great place to hang out. Mr. Neese never judged anybody. He was fair. He was always willing to lend an ear and listen to your problems, whether it was school problems or home problems, girlfriend, boyfriend problems. He was just a great guy, and as I said, he was like a second father to a lot of us. And so he's sorely missed already, but there's going to be a celebration of his life this Saturday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I believe, if memory serves me correctly, I believe it's at the Inglewood United Methodist Church. So if anyone would like to know more about that, give me a call after the show, or you can email me at randy@csorm, and I'll fill you in on the details. Okay. I stumbled across another picture from 1908, And I think we may have seen this picture before, but when I stumbled across it again this week, I said, I got to put that back on the show, because we love looking at how Rocky Mount has changed over the years. And this is a picture of Sunset Avenue and Church Street from 1908. So Lee, if you would put that up for us, and we'll talk a little bit about this one. You know, it's hard to think about now that there were houses up and down Church Street. You know, the intersection of Church Street and Sunset Avenue. This is, of course, the 100 block of Church Street. You know, when I was in high school, I worked at Chipley Lincoln Mercury, which would be on the left here of this picture. And, of course, it didn't look anything like this then. You know, the houses that you see there now were long gone by the time I came along. But this picture, I don't know who took it, obviously, from 1908. The photographer's long since deceased. But it was a neat old picture, a little grainy, a little hard to make out a lot of details. But it just kind of gives you a snapshot looking back about how this city was in 1908. And then so I found another picture of the same exact intersection from 1958, 50 years later. So Lee, if you could, let's take a look at this same intersection. And again, interestingly enough, on the right-hand side, you could hard to make out, but it says Jones Used Cars. Well, in the early 1970s, I worked at Chipley Lincoln Mercury, which was right across the street there from Jones Used Cars lot, and that lot was the used car lot for Flake Chipley's Lincoln Mercury dealership. And so I'm not sure exactly when Mr. Chipley took over that lot across the street there. But of course, this is looking north on Church Street. The Masonic Temple will be a little bit further down your left-hand side. We just mentioned the teenage club that was held in the basement of the Masonic Temple. And you can't make it out from this picture, but it will be a little bit further north from this on the left-hand side. But these two pictures appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram, I believe, in 1958. And in the caption, it says many changes here have taken place in the 100 block of North Church Street during the time which passed between taking the share of the two photos. The top picture is from 1908, and of course this is from 1958. But this appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram, and this picture was provided to the Telegram courtesy of Miss Mary Ruth Devine. So I don't remember that name, but anyway, neat old picture, goes way back, and love to see these old pictures. You know, we've talked a couple times over the last few weeks about the different events, and early night someone called in and said they, you know, loved the idea there's always something going on in Rocky Mount year round, but particularly in the spring and the summertime. There were parades, and there were, you know, social gatherings, there were dances, there were just a lot of, you know, events, not only for the adults but for kids. The theaters, the Center Theater and the Cameo particularly had Saturday morning matinees where you could go down for a dime and watch a movie on Saturday morning. You know, just it was a time when parents would bring the kids out of town and drop them off and then come back later in the day and pick them up, and there was never any concern about anybody being, you know, molested or bothered or have to be concerned about them getting injured anyway. It was just a very, very neat time in the history of Rocky Mount. I think we've lost a lot of our innocence as a city, and that's sad. You know, that's not to say that Rocky Mount is hopeless. I've still got a lot of hope for Rocky Mount. But there's a lot of good things that have sadly gone to the wayside now, and some of these events that used to be so frequent throughout the year, we just don't have them anymore, and that's a shame. Okay, Lee, let's go ahead then, if we could, to the next picture. One of those events was, of course, the Gallopade Parade. And I'm not sure exactly when the Gallopade Parade began. We've seen some pictures from 1939 on the previous show. I found this one from 1947, and I think this was the last year that the Gallopade Parade. And Lee, can you zoom out on that picture? This was actually obviously a headline for May of 1941. There you go. But this particular Gallopade Parade actually had 3 different types of aircraft that participated in the parade. Now, the article doesn't say here whether they flew by as the parade was ongoing or whether they were strolled down the road as part of the parade. I would imagine that this was probably part that took place out at the airport. Maybe someone remembers this. Again, it was May the 1st, 1947. But this was a headline here in the Evening Telegram that year, or that day I should say, and it says various types of planes here for Gallopade Air Show. So I'm guessing that this part of the Gallopade celebration, again, took place probably out there at the old airport on Church Street. And so it would have been a neat thing to see for sure. 3 different types of aircraft. 2 appear to be military aircraft, and one looks to be maybe a seaplane. The one on the far left looks to be a seaplane. But just, one of many things that were available for fun things to do and fun ways to spend some time around Rocky Mountain in the 1940s. And again, I think this was the last year the Gallopade parade itself took place. Don't quote me, I could be wrong, but I think it was the last year. Okay, I think we've got time to get into, we've talked about the boats that you could ride in up and down Tar River. There was something called the Exchange Club. Excuse me, got my tongue tangled for a minute there. The Exchange Club actually bought and provided to the city of Rocky Mount a boat in 1955, and it was called the Exchangeite. And so for I think like a quarter or 20 cents, something like that, you could get on and you could ride on a 20-minute ride up and down Tar River on the Exchangeite boat. So Lee, if you could, let's go to the next picture. And this picture appeared, well, this is the article, excuse me. This appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram in 1955, June of 1955, and it just talks about the Exchange Club launches a pleasure boat on the river. And I don't know how long this Exchangeite boat was run up and down the river, but I did find some neat pictures. So anyway, I just wanted to share this with the article. Won't try to read it now, but anyway, let's go to the next picture. And you'll see the, there you go. This Exchange Club bought this boat from somewhere down around the coast, Harker's Island, I think is where it came from. But you'll see there, the caption says, purchased by the Exchange Club of Rocky Mount and presented to the city of Rocky Mount, is shown above just after it was launched this morning in Riverside Park. Notice at that point, there was not Sunset Park, it was called Riverside Park. The boat, which would be giving paying passengers a 20-minute ride, I'm being cut off at the bottom of the screen, I can't see that. But yeah, I think it says it would begin within 2 weeks. But this was the boat as it first was put in the water. Now, not much to look at here. But they dressed it up, kind of spruced it up a bit, and the mayor's wife helped launch it on its official maiden voyage a little bit later that month. So Lee, if you could, let's go to the next picture. And at that time, the mayor was, oh shoot, I can't forget, Murkison, there you go, Ms. Jack Murkison. She was the wife of the Rocky Mountain mayor, and there she is breaking a bottle of champagne on the bow of the Exchangeite boat this was its maiden voyage as far as carrying passengers. The previous picture was just the folks who were responsible for putting it together and getting it, putting the program, I should say, together, not the boat, but the program together. And so this was the day it actually began serving the public and providing rides up and down Tar River. And the next picture, I think, Lee, if you'll bring that one up for us, this is actually, there you go. On hot days, I had, of course, the little cover there at the top, and it like it could seat, I don't know, somewhere around 15 or 18 people maybe. But this is something that I think would be a lot of fun, and sadly, the people that were conducting this interview with this documentary for Mr. Billy Harrison asked me Monday, was there anyone or any way to get someone to take you for a ride up and down Tar River just to kind of cruise the river a little bit? And I had to kind of smile. I said, no, sadly there's not. But ironically, at one time, we did have such a service available in Rocky Mount. And it's just another one of those things that, would have been a lot of fun. I'm sure would have been very popular, but sadly, I don't know again when this Exchangeite boat stopped serving the city of Rocky Mount and stopped providing passenger service up and down the river. But certainly in 1955, it was a very important part of something fun to do in the summertime in Rocky Mount. So, okay, Lee, I tell you what, bring it back to me. I just realized we've gone a little bit over from our first commercial break period. So we're going to take another quick break, folks, and when we come back, we're going to show you some more pictures. And we're going to talk a little bit, I mentioned earlier, but we're going to talk a little bit about science and some old things that used to take place in Rocky Mountain many, many years ago that have gone by the wayside now. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Way Back Wednesday.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service, we offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family, and we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
Hello, my name is Gus Tullis of Gus Tullis Insurance, and I've been helping people with their insurance needs for well over 20 years. If you're turning 65 or you're currently on Medicare, I can help you make the best decision for the Medicare plan that will suit your needs. Don't wait. Call me today. I'll answer any question you have. 252-937-6913. Looking forward to hearing from you.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
With more Wayback Wednesday. Thank you for joining us, folks. We're looking back tonight. We're talking about how Rocky Mount was and what a great place it was to grow up here. There were so many exciting times, so many fun things to do, from the parades to, someone called in during the break a little while ago, was talking about the bus. We showed a picture last week, if you remember, of a bus that used to ride around and pick up kids and take them to the Skyview roller skate rink and then take them back home. I think it was $1 to ride the bus. They would come to your home, pick you up on Saturday morning, take you to the roller skating rink. You'd get a couple hours of roller skating, and they'd take you back home. You were back home by lunchtime on Saturday morning. And so, there was just so many things like that. The Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts were constantly doing things, camping trips and camporees and jamborees, these kind of things. I participated in several of those growing up as a kid. And it just seems to me that there's a lot of fun activities that we used to have access to in this city that we just don't have anymore. And, I'm not saying it's anybody's fault. I'm just saying that a lot of things that used to be available for the citizens here are no longer there. So if you've got a memory you'd like to share with us, give us a call. 407-1111 is the number. We'd love to hear from you. And we talked earlier at the top of the show, too, about 1962 when Martin Luther King came to Rocky Mount and gave his speech, parts of it of which are now famous, the I Have a Dream speech, as it's often referred to. So I'd be curious to know if anyone in the viewing audience was there at that speech in 1962, or perhaps one of your parents were there, if you know someone who was there. I would love to hear from someone who has a personal first-hand experience about how that speech made you feel, or how it made your parents feel, if your parents were there. I'd like to think that there was some very good vibes, if you will, coming off of that speech that day for Rocky Mount. But again, if you've got an idea or a memory you want to share with us, 407-1111, love to hear from you. Okay. We've talked in the past about some of the storms that have blown through Rocky Mount. Certainly the one that comes to mind first and foremost is Hurricane Floyd in 1999. Where something like 30% of Rocky Mount was underwater. We lost a lot of businesses, a lot of homes were destroyed. Sadly, some lives were lost too. And that was, certainly in my mind, the worst storm I can recall ever hitting Rocky Mount. Some of you may remember also Hurricane Hazel in 1954. And while I was preparing for the night show, I stumbled across a picture that I've seen before, and some of you that watch the show will remember this picture. But it was from 1954, of course, when Hurricane Hazel come through. And this is over off of Arlington Street, I believe it is. But in any case, it was 1954, and you see the damage there, the AMP in the background there. But in any case, I believe this is the AMP that was over there kind of across the street from the R.M. Wilson Junior High School, I think. I'm not certain about that. And I don't know that this roof you see laying on the ground here was necessarily from the AMP, but something lost the roof, obviously. It could have been a house or a building that was in close proximity. But, you know, when Hurricane Hazel hit the North Carolina coast, it was a Category 4 hurricane. Major hurricane, and it just wreaked havoc for miles and miles and miles. Some 130 or 40 miles inland, it was still packing hurricane force winds, and when it blew through Rocky Mount, it was still a whale of a storm. And so, you know, we've had some rough weather blow through before. You know, certainly tornadoes have come through many times over the years, floods and hurricanes, of course. But, you know, Mother Nature can sometimes wreak havoc, and she certainly did in 1954 when Hurricane Hazel came through here. Okay, you know, I ran across another picture this week that I'd never seen before. It's from 1912, and it really got my mind to thinking and questioning things that I really hadn't thought about before. So, Lee, if you will, let's put up this next picture. This was the... from 1912, this was the gas plant, the Rocky Mount gas plant, that it was located over on Albemarle. If you know where the Rocky Mount, the city of Rocky Mount, over there off of Grand Avenue, has an entire couple of city blocks where there's all kind of operations going on over there. There's the fueling for the police cars and city vehicles is over there, of course. There's a bunch of warehouse space. But somewhere in that vicinity was where the Rocky Mount gas plant was. And you see at the top of the tower there, it says cook with gas. So that got me thinking. I said, you know, now you walk into a room and you flip the light switch and you expect the light to come on. You go to your thermostat, hit the thermostat. In the summertime, you expect the air conditioning to come on. In the wintertime, you expect the heat to come on. And we do these things without thinking about what happens in the background, so to speak, and what had to take place before that electricity got to you or that gas got to you if you got a gas stove or a gas hot water heater. You know, gas is piped all over the country now with underground gas lines. But in the early 1900s, a lot of cities and municipalities had gas plants. And this was Rocky Mount. In 1912, this picture was taken, and it shows the actual gas plant. And so, you know, we don't have any wells, gas wells around here, obviously. So it wasn't a matter of pumping gas out of the ground. So the question arose: how did Rocky Mount produce gas? And so I couldn't find anything about the actual operation of this plant, but I did a few Google searches and found out that a lot of municipalities use a technique referred to as gasification. And gasification basically means they would heat up coal, and as coal gets heated, it begins to put off fumes and gases, carbon monoxide. There's a lot of different hydrogen, nitrogen, different gases are put off, and then by different processes, they separate out the different various gases. And so this was how Rocky Mount produced, and it was referred to as town gas. And of course, most municipalities had a gas plant of some sort, unless they were fortunate enough to be in an area where they could, you know, pump gas out of the ground or pipe it up out of the ground. But we didn't have that here. So this would have been the plant that was used to produce the town gas, as it was referred to, in Rocky Mount. I'm not exactly sure what those two towers were for. The close proximity to the water, to the river, I'm guessing these were water tanks. Because a lot of times, you know, there would be water used in this process, and so I'm guessing these are water tanks. But it was a neat old picture, and so it got me hunting around for different things that were power and electrical generation in nature. So in the next picture, Lee, this is, by the way, this next picture appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram in 1939, and I apologize, it's a terrible picture. It's grainy, it's horrible. But it was a neat picture because it was an April Fool's joke that appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram on April 1st of 1939. and it's hard to make out, but at the top of the picture, just below the headline, that's a hog. It's a hog that appeared at the top of the smokestack down at the power plant on Tar River off of Sunset Avenue down there. And of course, it was a gag, of course. It was a April Fool's Day joke, if you will. But the picture appeared in the paper and immediately got folks talking. How'd they get that hog up there? How in the world did they get a hog on top of a smokestack? And of course, it was just today we'd say photoshopped. In the 1930s, they didn't have a Photoshop. It was, some really trick photography, if you will. Probably combining a couple different photographs into one, actually. But it's a neat trick, April 1st of 1939. But, that got me looking further into Rocky Mount Power Plant. And the next picture, if you would, Lee, we showed this picture last week, by the way. This is from 1915. You may remember this next picture. Now, you notice this picture, two things that jump out. Number one, there's no smokestack. This is right here. It's a Sunset Avenue you're looking at. You're looking west on Sunset Avenue. The Tar River there, that steel bridge going to the Tar River there on the right-hand side of your screen. But you see there's no smokestack here. Now, I've looked at this picture a bunch of times. Eric Dawson came by the shop a couple days ago, and he and I looked at it some more. And if you count the windows, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 8 or 9 windows on the facing of this building. Not the side facing Sunset Avenue, but the side facing whoever took the picture. So I went back in and looked at some other pictures I had of this building, of this power plant. Of course, you see it's captioned here, it says powerhouse. Later years it would be called the power plant, but in 1912 it was referred to as the powerhouse when this picture was taken. So then I said, okay, well, let's look forward. So Lee, the next picture, if you would, put this next one up. This is from 1924. Now, notice, number one, we still don't have a smokestack on the right-hand side. This is still Sunset Avenue here. It's still dirt, by the way. In 1924, Sunset Avenue was still a dirt road. And you notice there's a smokestack on the left-hand side of the building. None on the right, but there's a smokestack on the left-hand side of the building. So I thought, I don't remember seeing a smokestack on the left-hand side of this building. So I got to doing some more looking. And so if you could, Lee, let's go to the next picture. This is actually from the 1940s. This is at City Lake, of course. And as you can see, in the 1940s, there was 2 smokestacks on the power plant, one on the left and one on the right. So the one on the left at some point obviously got taken down. The one on the right is still there. On the far right-hand side of the picture, and this is a neat old picture because you're looking across the City Lake at the power plant to your left and at the water treatment plant to your right. So you get both the Rocky Mount's primary utilities in the 1940s, both operational at that time, in one snapshot, and the City Lake in the middle of it. So neat picture here. We're almost out of time, but let's go ahead, Lee, and take a look at these, a couple more. We've seen this picture before. This is the coal hopper. This is at the coal plant. Early power generation oftentimes involved burning coal to heat water in a boiler that generated steam. The steam drove a turbine. The turbine generated electricity. And so we use a lot of coal in Rocky Mount. Over the years we've burned, oh golly, tons and tons and tons, millions of tons of coal for a variety of things. It was certainly used in production of electricity and power generation. It was used in heating homes and businesses for many, many years. I've told the story before about taking a coal bucket from my grandparents' coal bin into the house on many a cold morning. But coal was very widely used in Rocky Mount as a major source of energy production, not only for heating homes and businesses, but as I said, for firing up boilers and generating steam to run generators and generate electricity. Okay, we're just out of time. Let's go a couple more, Lee. This is also from 1940. This is the interior of the power plant. This was taken in the 1940s also, of course. And this building, I'm not sure exactly when this building, well, the first picture was 1915, the second was 1924. I'm not sure exactly when this building was built, but that 1915 picture to me looked relatively new. So I'm thinking it was probably built sometime in the early 1900s. Okay, so let's go ahead then, Lee, to the next picture. And this one is actually, of course, riding down Sunset today. This was actually taken in June of 2021, I think it was. I found this on Google Map, just did a Google search for Sunset Avenue and found this picture. And you see the building itself has changed quite a bit over the years. The smokestack, as I said on the right, is still there. The old covered steel bridge is now replaced by a modern day bridge. And but this is the power plant as we know it today. And then we've got a couple of pictures that we just saw. Let's go ahead, Leah, real quickly and show these next two. These are the water plant right across the road. There you go. And when I was a kid, this of course was operational. We took a field trip here one time, I remember, I don't know, second or third grade, somewhere along in there. And we got a tour of the water plant and how they gave us a little demonstration about how it worked and how the water was taken up from the river through pipes and went through the purification process and then sent back out to provide fresh drinking water to the city. And I think the next picture is another angle, Lee, of the same building. There you go. It's a pretty building and relatively new in the 1940s too. So this next picture, I think this might be the last one for the night. To show this one last one, Lee. Many of you remember this as the Pearsall Machine Works or Jenkins Pearsall Machine Works. This was the original building in Rocky Mount for power production. This building is actually on the National Historical Registry. And it's a shame because the roof of this building is literally falling in. I wish someone would do something with this building. It really is a great building. There's a lot of things could be done with it, but it's in horrible shape right now. But as I said, in later years it became a machine shop. Ironically, it was originally a one-story building, and they added a second story onto this building. And so, folks, we've run slam out of time. Lee, bring it back to me. We've got some more pictures I wanted to share with you folks. We didn't get a chance to get to them tonight. I apologize for that. We'll get to them next week for sure. I want to tell you folks, it's been my pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great week. Take care of yourselves and be kind to one another. We'll see you next week with more Way Back Wednesday. Good night.
This is Nicholas Bellamy at Premier Equipment. I'm going to talk about the 4540 Mahindra. It's 38 horsepower, full cylinder engine. The weight of this tractor is 4,000 pounds. This tractor is perfect for bush hogging, distance, small garden, a hunting club tractor. Comes with a 7-year warranty, 2-year bumper to bumper, additional 5-year on the powertrain. You can have this tractor for $200 a month, and we have 20 of these tractors in stock. Premier Equipment is open during the week from 8 to 5:30 and on the weekends from 8 to 12.
Were you then doing that?
Well, I was in the Boy Scouts, 12.
Okay.
12, 13.
So early days, you were athletic, honing your skills.
And I was in shorts one day and we had to go, my scout troop was Troop 113, was sponsored by Sidney Blumenthal, Caramount Mills, which was right up and across the street from where the plant was. Well, I go to preparatory camporee. We're putting up tents and stuff, getting ready for go to the camporee, and my legs were black from the shorts down, just walking that cold dust. And one of the boys made a comment, said, "Stallings, you look like you've been in a coal bucket."
And it stuck.
And that stuck. In the Redskin program, Don Coal Bucket Stallings.
It followed you